Okay, good morning. So we're up to Shin Chof Tes Seif Dalet. We're talking about Rachmana litzlan, if there's a pikuach nefesh situation on Shabbos, there's a building that has collapsed, how you can deal with it. So says the halacha, says the mechaber in Seif Dalet. Afilu matzauhu merutzot. Even if Rachmana litzlan, you find the mace, you find the body, and the body is crushed, and it may be alive, but it can only live for a very short while. Still, you're allowed to move and to be over, isurim, in order to let this to try and see if the person is alive. And if you don't see any breathing from his nose, any chiyus, then clearly the person has passed away. It doesn't make a difference whether you get to the nose from the feet first or from the head first. You can still check even if he's crushed by this fallen building until you know for certain that he's died. Okay, says the Mishnah Brura Sif Katan Yud Oz Vaday Meis Dichsiv. If there's no breathing, then we know he's dead. So it's breathing, and not just breathing from the mouth, but breathing from the nostrils. It's to do with the nostrils. In other words, imagine you go feet first, and then you can see the heart's not pumping. So you don't assume bevadai meis, and you don't have to start clearing away the rubble further. That even in that situation, you continue checking until you've reached the nose. Then maybe there is still life there, and you can save this person even for a short period of time. Now, if you take a look at footnote 17. Now, regarding this checking to see if there's breathing, if this fellow's alive, to the nostrils, She'ein hakavona it's not pshat that you just check his nostrils and see if there's some breathing. Says Reb Vosna that you check the neck and you check around that area. And if there's no signs of life and he's not breathing, then it's not just checking the breathing from the nose. But if the heart is still pumping, then you don't verify the death just by a lack of breathing, because if the heart is still pumping, then there's still signs of life. But if, however, you first check the head, if the whole skull, the whole head is crushed, if the head is severed from the body, okay, so that's just a bit of clarification on that. Again, how you define death in halacha is a major topic, but way beyond this particular sif. Okay. Sif hey. Motze elyonim mesim. So again, we're talking about collapsed building on Shabbos, and you're trying to you're trying to save the mace. What happens if there was a destroyed building, a collapsed building, and the people on top you've ascertained have died already? So lo yoymar kvar mesu tachtonim. You don't say, well, presumably the ones lower down have also died. And mefakech aleim shem adayin heim chaim. You're still allowed to be mechal Shabbos and to move away in order to see if there's anyone below that is still alive. Okay, no Mishnah Broughton. Hey.
What about covered on mace?
It's a covered amaze. You are doicher if it's a case of pikuach nefesh. So you're allowed to. You can do it in a respectful way, but you're allowed to move the mace around and to go deeper to search for more if there's a possibility of more bodies. So this is a case of pikuach nefesh. You can do anything for that. And again, it doesn't have to be a violation of covered amaze. You can do it in a respectful way. Okay, Vov. Oivdei kechavim shetzaru al ayoris. So there's some sort of pogrom, there's some sort of siege where they're attacking Ayoris Yisrael, Jewish towns, in Bo al Iskei Moment. Now, if they're coming for financial reasons, they want to burgle, they want to loot, Ein Mechalin Lez Shabbos, then there's no heter to fulfill Shabbos. However, Bo al Iskei Nefoshes, if they're attacking and there is life at stake, Afilu Stam, and even if you're not sure exactly what their intention is. Then you're allowed to go out with weapons and you can be Mechal Shabbos in doing so. And if there is a city which is near the border, even if they're only coming for financial things, for straw and for things like that, you're allowed to Mechal Shabbos to prevent them attacking the border city. Says the Ramah, even if they haven't actually come yet, but they're planning to come, you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos to prevent that. Okay. Yeah, sadly, these are not historic situations only. Aliske Mammon says the Mishnah Berurah Sifkat Yud Beis. B'shvil hefsid Mammon lo heta is Shabbos, lo huta is Shabbos. So if you know that they're coming just to burgle, to loot, and for financial reasons, then that doesn't give you a green light to break Shabbos because hefsid Mammon is not good enough to allow Issa Shabbos. But if they're coming for Iske Nefashos, or even if you're not sure what their intention is, then you're allowed to. Says the Mishnah Berurah Yud Gimel, Vafilu Stam, the Sofik Nefashos Lahakel, Lasfar, and even if they come to a border town. So what does that mean? Ir Shemavdeles Ben Gvul Yisrael, Dorim Ba Ligvul Ha'ivdi Gelulim. You've got a town in between a Jewish and a non-Jewish habitation, and they're attacking that. V'chashin Shem Yilkaduam, and with the concern is that if they capture that border town, Mishab, it's a very vulnerable spot, and therefore they might launch an attack from that border town. So therefore, that's already treated more seriously, and you're allowed to defend that. Even if lo ba'al iske teven and kash, even if they're coming for monistic things, you're allowed to defend it. Even if the word gets out that they're attacking that border town, but they haven't yet come, you can put on your armor and your guns and whatever, lishmer, to protect, velasos kol be'ir, and to spread the word in town, because you have to sort of to start thinking too carefully, is this pikuach nefesh, is it not? You assume it is, err on the side of caution. This is definitely a sofik, and therefore you can protect yourselves. If you take a look at number 18, however, im sofik hasakonahu rochik ma'id. If, however, the degree of danger is very distant, kagoin bektata, there was an argument, there was some sort of altercation. She sofik rav ha'im yigrim shemikrim ovis. It's a very unlikely scenario that it might cause a situation of death. Kosvagon Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. In the case, just like you've got one doctor saying it's dangerous and two saying not, so if it's a very distant situation, then that doesn't give you the green light to be Mechal Shabbos. Okay, but the Ramah finishes off and says, where is this? Have I missed a bit? Oh no, we haven't done the Zion yet. Oh, sorry, okay, we've got to go back to Mechaba, yeah.
There's a guy, for example, at the moment who's going around at night, desecrating shuls and schools and everything. Someone like that, you'd be able to, on Shabbos, you'd be able to... Let's
do the next halacha, and you'll see, more will become clear. Let's finish off and then we can talk about it. It's hard to give exact definitions. Let's look at the next halacha. Zayin. Yesh mi she'omer, shebizman hazeh, afilu bo al iskei momen mechalin. Nowadays, even if they come purely for financial things, they want to steal the car in the front drive or whatever, you're allowed to Mechal Shabbos. Why? Shem lo yanichenu Yisrael lishlev lovos memona. Because if a Jew's going to protest and he doesn't want this person to come and take away his candlesticks or whatever it is, and therefore he's going to try and protest that, yargenu, there could be a case which leads to death. Vavi iske nefashos. Then essentially this ganav is coming in for iske nefashos. And therefore, says the Ramah, sort of very wise words, it depends very much on the matter at hand, and every situation needs to be judged accordingly. Says the Mishnah Berurah Tezayin, Shem lo yanechenu. Now that's talking about a situation where they're attacking many people. The concern is that if they're coming to the whole shtetl, they're coming to the town, then one person is going to protest and say, no, don't take my candlesticks, and that he could be killed as a result of that, and therefore it's got a din of coming not for iskei momon but iskei nefashos. V'lochein have a kamosh ba'al iskei nefashos. But if they're just attacking one individual, Yaniach likach memoinoi v'lo yechales Shabbos. Let the person come in, take your candlesticks and go, and not be mechal Shabbos. Okay, so again, it's really hard to know that. So the guy breaks in and he's coming in, and if you say to him, "Yeah, please help yourself to the candlesticks," will he do anything more? We don't know nowadays. So it would seem to me that would be a case of Sofik Pukach Nefesh, and you need to defend yourself. And certainly in this day and age, where there's never a rise in anti-Semitism, who knows what it could lead to? So I don't know. It's hard, but let's just do the Ramah, the Mishnah Berurah. Hakol lefi Inyan. What does that mean? It depends on the levels of anger and his ferocity, to see what he could do. V'da. Listen to this. Says the Chavetz Chaim, written over 100 years ago, back in Radin, which is on the border of Poland and Russia, where people do come. There are pogroms and people come and they loot. But vaday mechuyavim onu lotzes b'kli zayin. You've got to go out and protect yourself with armor. I feel like iskei moment, even if they're coming just for financial things, but you're allowed to protect yourself. According to the letter of the lands or wherever it was. If it's going to escalate in any way, you got to do something about it. So it's hard to know, but certainly to make phone calls and to protect, if we can get, then yeah, mistama. Okay, Ches Harayas Safina Sheyesh by Yisrael Hamaturefes Bayam. You see, like you're in Netanya, you're in Herzliya, and you see there's a ship, a boat out there on the sea on Shabbos, which is struggling, it's going under. V'chein nahar sheitef, we've got a river which is overflowing. V'chein yachid hanirdaf mipnei ovid kachavim, where you see a Yisrael who's being chased by a non-Jewish person. Mitzvah al kol adam lechalel aleim Shabbos kadei lahatzilon. You're allowed to mechal Shabbos. It's a mitzvah for a person to be mechal Shabbos to save the situation. If someone is being forced to do something, okay, says Mishnah Berurah Yutches Mipnei Akum Vuadin Misrael Lav Dafke, he's being chased by an Akum. If the person is being threatened, his life is in danger, and he's being chased even by Yisrael, you're allowed to Mechal Shabbos to save the Yisrael who's being chased. If you estimate that it's going to come to danger. Because the rule is with the Reidef that you're allowed to kill the person who's running after you to try and attack you. So therefore you can Mechal Shabbos to stop him as well. That if a person is running away, is being chased from a dangerous animal, a snake or a bear, there's also mitzvah to save him. Even if it means violating many melachas of Shabbos. What is this going on? Yes, you're allowed to be mechal Shabbos kadei latzilam umikol makom. Im yesh sakana lahamatzel ein mechuyev. This is a big topic. If there is a sakana for you, the matzel, to put yourself in danger to save the other person, then ein mechuyev. He is not obligated to chayav kodim lechayav chaver, because your life takes precedence over your friend's life. And even a sofik sakana for yourself is, as opposed to vada of your friend, is that trumps. You got to weigh it up very carefully. Not be overly cautious, perhaps. But if you're too overly cautious, you might end up doing this. It's a famous case with I think it's the Radvaz in many centuries ago, that there was a case where they attacked the Yiddish town, and they said that they're going to kill a person, kill one Yisrael, unless one person comes out and volunteers to have his hand amputated, cut off. So is anyone mechuyev to have their hand amputated to save another Jew? And the Radvaz paskin exactly this, that he's not mechuyev to do it. It's a midas chasidus if he chooses to do it, but he's not mechuyev to do it. But again, this is a massive topic.
How do you know if they're just going to stop with their hands?
Yeah. I guess that's the point. You have to judge, like he says. You gotta check it out, and you don't ultimately know.
What about if it's actually to die yourself? That's you're not mechuyev, you're mechuyev not to. Wait, I didn't follow. What's the Mishnah saying? That you're not allowed.
So this is for you to Mechal Shabbos to save somebody else.
No, so for you to die.
So what he's saying is you can't put yourself. You're not mechuyev to put yourself in a makom sakana.
You're allowed to.
Yes, you're allowed to, and it's a midas chasidus. That's the chiddush of the Radbaz. You're not mechuyev, but you're allowed to in his middle chassidus. Yeah. So that's the situation of sofek sakana. So in other words, or more, if you know, the vada sakana, then I don't think so. That's that's the case of the gimel veris chamuras, that you can't give up your life to save another. But again, it depends if there's kiddush Hashem and all those factors. So that's the whole issue. Okay, let's finish off. So a person went out, Rachman Islam, with their armory, and then, thank God, the matter is over. Then they're allowed to go back with their kli zayin. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Tif Kotan Chav, Kadei Shelo Lahachshilim La'asid Lavoi. Because if you don't allow the guy to go back, then they might not go in the first place. Shelo Yiratzu Lahatz Loid, because they won't be keen to save in the future occasion. So just one footnote, 23, which is actually at the back of the Sefer. So he says, in page 63, if you got it, Lekamon, he says, Kos v'shem abach v'lirabah, shehuchzer lachzer em kli hazayin, hu mishum shem yisalkum mehem es hakli zayin, yesh lir shem yirdu v'acharem ha'evim k'muvu b'shas. If they're not allowed to come back with their kli zayin, if a situation arises again later that afternoon, they're left without their weapons. So they're allowed, that's the svara to allowed to come back. Now this is a famous heta, that in the future, what's the geder of it? If a person is hesitant to go out in the first place, then I'm allowed to encourage the person to go back. By the way, like for example, Hatzalah members. So they're allowed to take the call because they know that they're going to lift back, starting from the non-Jewish ambulance driver, to get lift back is no problem. But even themselves to go back, there are grounds to matzim. Many Hatzalah, around the world allow the Hatzalah member to go back on Shabbos because of this svara. Because kadesh shem yisrashel bekach v'lochein rak b'pikuach nefesh. But it only is a situation. It only allows, doesn't allow everything. So the Hatzalah member, or in this situation, going out with whatever it is to save the town, is allowed because the threat was a threat of pikuach nefesh, right? So shehut lava amalocha deraisa gam besofik mishum lo yisavad adam recha hitir lava lesurim kadesh lo yimnu beosid milahatzlo. We don't want to prevent a future situation of pikuach nefesh. Avul b'shad dinim kagoin hasheichet behema b'yontov v'nimsa treifa. If a person shechs an animal on yontov and then it finds to be treifa, kozva shulchan aruch lekamon she'osa lahafshit tezer. You can't flay the skin of that animal. We don't say, well, if you don't allow him to flay the animal, then he won't shech next yontif. It's only to allow a pikuach nefesh situation that we allow of kadesh lo lachshilim la'asid lave. Okay, Mr. Hashem, we should be well. We should know about these situations.